Okay, so I'm actually holding my phone for this video because I'm having some trouble with my little stand. But I haven't done a video in a while, and I wanted to kind of touch on some of the houses because some of you guys are learning astrology. And as most of you know who know the basics of astrology, the sign is the energy and the house is where that energy is taking place. And I want to talk about the 12th house today because the 12th house has such a bad reputation in books, in astrology books. And the reason why is it's, we have 12 houses in the zodiac, obviously, but it's the last house. And it's kind of like where all of our stuff just gathers, like all the dust and everything. The reason why this video is called, the 12th house, service or suffering, is because that's what the 12th has a reputation of being. It's the house, if we aren't of service, then we end up suffering in some capacity. Now, we all have a 12th house. Some of us have a packed 12th house with lots of planets. But even if you don't have any planets there, it still influences you because there's always planets on the cusp. So when I do a chart, I'm always looking on planets on the cusp and any aspects to those planets on the cusp to figure out what's going on with the 12th house in your chart. So just to break it down really quick, even though it has such a bad reputation as far as the house of self-undoing, addiction, imprisonment, whether that's literal or figurative, people can be imprisoned in their mind with their belief systems, or they can actually be incarcerated. It has so many positive things too. And because not only is it the house of secrets and the subconscious and things we keep to ourselves, but it's also the house of our hidden talents. The 12th house is ruled by Neptune and Pisces. So any planets there kind of give us, a haziness, kind of unsure. And the reason why it's called the house of self-undoing is because this is where people like subconsciously mess themselves up, whether it's in relationships or just behaviors or patterns. Once we realize and understand astrology and understand that we do have the power to change whatever we want to change, then there's liberation, which there's a book out there called The 12th House, Misery or Moksha, which is final liberation too. So really quick, because I have to get to the bottom line here, I want to talk about some planets in the 12th house and what some possible meanings they can mean for you are. We're going to start with Mars in the 12th house. This is somebody that hides their anger. They hide, like that kid in class that's really, really quiet, but you don't want to make them mad because when they explode, they're going to explode big time. That's a Mars in the 12th house. Venus in the 12th house is going to be somebody who hides their feelings for someone romantically, or, subconsciously has hangups as far as getting involved in with someone romantically. And a lot of times the 12th house, they say, has to do with our past lives. I find that it also has to do with our early situations with our parents, things we've seen, things we've watched. Mercury in the 12th house in sidereal and tropical astrology is the phenomenal placement for psychics and mediums, because Mercury is communication. The 12th house is our ability to communicate with other realms. Now, one thing I noticed with Mercury in the 12th house, when these people are kids, little kids, a lot of times they're very shy because they hide their communication. The moon in the 12th house usually is indicative of somebody whose mother maybe had some problems in the pregnancy or was having problems during that time of her life. So this person would tend to hide their emotions more than anything, even from themselves sometimes, because, this is why it's called the house of self-undoing. This is where we subconsciously can mess ourselves up, and that's why it's so important to know astrology and how we cannot mess ourselves up. And then we have, basically the sun, okay? The sun, and this is like a lot of times if you read real basic astrology books, they'll say somebody with the sun in the 12th house is kind of retiring. Maybe the dad was gone a lot when they were little, the father rules the sun, or maybe he died early. But what I found, because I just did a chart for a lady the other day who had a packed 12th house, is these people are really, really, really self-made. They really are. And so I took all these notes before I actually talked to her because I had been working on her chart. And it turns out she's super successful. She's super successful. She's very much self-made. She's a very likable person, but a heavy 12th house. So it doesn't mean that, oh, you're doomed to, all this terrible stuff because you have a heavy 12th house. It is the house of the subconscious. I find 12th house people to be great manifestors of reality, because the 12th house is Neptune. It also rules the imagination. And as you guys know, in order to get anywhere in life, we have to create it with our imaginations first and then work towards it. So this